Hi friends, host Eric here, host Talking with Famous People, and I'm live streaming. I'm live streaming about the intuitives. The reason being because Zack attack notwithstanding, most of the audience of this channel, most of the people who participate, are probably intuitives. Now, intuitives include everybody who's got an N in their MBTI type instead of an S. So that's ENTP, INTP, ENTJ, INTJ, ENFP, INFP, ENFJ, INFJ. Those are all of your N's. Even though the N's make up 50% of the types, they only make up 25% of the population. So intuitives in general are less common than sensors. And there's probably a pretty good reason for this, which is that intuitives deal with the metaphysical world as their nature, as their primary means of interacting with reality, whereas sensors tend to deal with the physical world as their primary means of interacting with reality. There are, of course, big differences in the expressions of intuition and or sensory stuff, depending on what kind of sensor or intuitive you are. Good morning, Nick.
Yo.
So, I don't know if you saw the announcement of what we're live streaming currently about intuitives and the differences between them. So anyway, sensors make up 75% of the population, probably because, at least until recently, 75% of the work that needed to be done was not metaphysical. So,
also,
go ahead, Nick.
Probably a lot of your creative people are intuitives, and having some, the guy that's wearing the nice or the flashy weird shirt is the easiest one to get preyed upon by prey. Creative people.
That's true. We're not very good at camouflaging ourselves from predators.
We're not going to fare too well.
But INFJ probably would do a great job of camouflaging themselves from predators, which is kind of the point of this video, that there's big differences between the intuitives, depending on whether they are introverted intuitives or extroverted intuitives, and depending on what pairs with that form of intuition. So, one of the reasons why I wanted to make this video is because it's occurred to me on several occasions that certain sensor types line up better with the intuitives, and certain intuitive types really line up better with the sensors in terms of their areas of interest. So, your SFJs are actually quite interested in the conversations and such of intuitives, but they're still fundamentally physical people in the sense that they're probably not going to seek it out on a regular basis the way that intuitives do, but they'll probably enjoy it when it happens to them. So, ESFJ, ISFJ, Jen, my next door neighbor, ESFJ, and Kimberly, my woman, ISFJ, we were all sitting out here yesterday morning, and I was basically, being there, ranting about shit or whatever on the internet, and they were both interested in the ideation. They were both interested in what I was talking about and hearing it and being part of that ideation process to some extent, either as participants or as audience or whatever. They found it interesting. I think, in contrast, some of your TE using intuitives, for example, ENTJ, is probably going to find it pointless navel gazing. So on that grounds, you'd say, well, ENTJ is a lot more like a sensor, in the sense that they tend to highly value things that are manifest in the physical world then are your SFJs, who really value metaphysical things like FE issues more highly than SE issues, and thus tend to resonate more with the intuitives. So SI, especially paired with FE, is going to feel more intuitive than NI compared with TE. Let me smoke this pipe for a second, and then I will muse upon what it means to have NI and NE and SI and SE. So this bowl of weed right here, little sidetrack, is a combination of wedding cake, which is a variation of Girl Scout cookies, and LA Kush, which is Gorilla Glue-like indica heavy hybrid, which is quite good. Quite
well, it's been treating you well.
Yeah, it is. It's good stuff. You know, if you've ever smoked good Girl Scout cookies, you know why they're called Girl Scout cookies. They taste like cookies. They really do. And wedding cake has sort of stepped back from that cookie taste a bit. It doesn't really taste like Girl Scout cookies, but you can still get that like back of the palate flavor of good Girl Scout cookies. But this is a little heavier.
You got me so stoned before when you dropped me off at the airport. That baseball bat thing, man.
Yeah, it hits good, huh?
Shit on me.
That pipe hits good. So intuitives, one thing that certain kinds of intuitives like to do drugs. ENTPs, for example. INTPs probably too, usually. So other kind of intuitives are much less likely to do drugs. Say INTJ. INTJs are fascinating creatures. They're absolutely fascinating. And they're a totally different kind of intelligent than NTPs. And they're equally brilliant. It's eye-opening watching them operate. Because yesterday I worked with my INTJ debater. I have one. Even when I had a big squad, I had one. She's a girl, an INTJ girl, and they're very rare. But and I have two INTPs, boys, in my squad right now. But only one of them is super good because INTPs and INTJs are slower to get good than ENTPs. But I can't remember the last time I worked with a kid as brilliant as this INTJ girl I worked with yesterday, Grace. When she reads through shit, she reads through it just as fast as I read through it and seems to process it just as well. So, freaking Demon Windu.
What did he say?
I don't even know. I just got a notification that he commented. I don't know what it says yet. It says study MBTI and become a, and then I can't read the rest of it.
The guy said, I want to meet him sometime.
I know. He gets credit for being
he's been a commenter for
he's a fixture. He's an archetype, in fact. He's not just a fixture, he's an archetype. When anybody else tries to troll, I just think to myself, man, you need to go take lessons from Demon Windu. He does it well. He's an effective troller.
He's like the jokester archetype, like the one guy that can is allowed to make fun of the king.
Well, yeah, he's the one guy who does it well enough to not get eye rolled. I mean, he sometimes says some fucking nasty shit though. It's like, There's been plenty of comments that I won't let publish or that I'll delete because he's just doing his goddamn best to get to me. You know, it's like, and if it involves Kimberly or something, I'm not gonna let that publish. It it doesn't really get to me because I know what to expect from him at this point. But there are definitely some comments that I won't let publish.
What did he say?
I mean, he said some nasty ass shit about her, basically, and it's all like slightly hidden, so he can make arguments of defense against it, you know. But yeah, about her appearance and stuff like that.
It's terrible.
I know. I didn't let it publish. He's
What do you
on
say?
like help. What's that?
What do you say just now is what I meant, though.
Oh.
And remember, you're going to talk about any verse.
Oh, yeah, right. We're not supposed to be talking about Demon Melindu. But that's NE for you right there. And that's one of the differences between an NI user and an NE user. An NE user is not at all afraid to go completely off the rails and start talking about something else because it's interesting. In fact, they have a hard time staying on the rails. The reason is because, as John kind of framed it the other day from St. Louis John, NI knows what is, NE knows what isn't. When it's compared with TI, NE knows what isn't means NE knows what's possible. Because TI is all about saying, all right, well, here are ways things can be wrong. Here's other possible ways, other possible interpretations of this. So, as a consequence, we tend to ideate freely in all directions. It's non-linear. To the extent that we're more successful in life, we make it more linear because that makes it more effective. And when we consume shit, we want shit that has linear organization. We want shit that's ready to be consumed and understood in kind of an NI fashion. But we don't afford that courtesy to others when we're presenting information. So we have to learn to do that, and it's something I'm continuing to learn to do, as was just evidenced by the fact that Nick had to get me back on track. So,
Love people.
NI though, NI is a very interesting form of intuition because it says it's like with any is active. You've got to make your brain come up with possibilities. Then you don't have to make your brain. If you're in any dumb, it just sort of happens. But the point is, it's something that you're doing, and you're putting out these mental notions that you afford little attachment to, in the sense that they're definitely not knowledge. They're definitely things open for further ideation and discussion. Now, NI says, I use the same kind of money that NE uses. But instead of putting out all these possible monies or whatever, you know, instead of putting out ideas, I take from that ideation process that which is known rather than considered. And it's an odd way to imagine that ideation can be known rather than considered. But for NI users, their epistemology, their way of knowing things about the world, is not driven by subjective experience. It's not driven by, they don't understand the world as being framed through what they've learned and what they've experienced. That's what SI users do. They frame it as these realities that I intuit about the world are not ideas that I put out there for consideration, but instead are facts implicit to the world that I know. So this is why, for example, INFJs get along so well with ENTPs. We ideate random shit. They know sort of the field level mechanics of ideation. And we are really good at playing on that field. So they're like as a field user, they're getting every play that's happening on this field. They're understanding it intuitively and naturally. But they're not really playing the game nearly as actively as an NE user on that field. Concurrently, the NE user is feeling good because they're interacting with a solid field. They get the fact that this field here understands when I step on it, it's not supposed to give way. So this is the reason they get along so well is because the epistemology coordinates with the action. They're the same. The reason SI DOMs get along well with an ENP is because the epistemology is the same and the action form is the same, but they do it in complementary ratios. So, for example, if I want to play a good game of basketball against you, we need to have complementary something. It could be that we're both high scorers, so it's a good close game. But with an SI Dom, it's more like they're really good at defense and I'm really good at offense, and so it's a tough game that way. And they have some good offense, but they're mostly really good at defense. And I have some good defense, but I'm mostly really good at offense. And so we complement each other in that fashion. Whereas with an INFJ, it's more like they're really conceptually solid about basketball. They get the court, they get the hoops, they get the pole that it stands on, the stanchion, which is what the thing that attaches the hoop to the backboard is called, by the way, a stanchion. I don't know if you guys were aware of that.
No,
Yeah, it's called a stanchion.
What's it called?
A stanchion. STANTION, I believe.
Did you tell the story so you can show it? You can provide.
It's just something that came up in my mind right there. It's like, oh, well, I actually know what that's called.
Well, how do you know that?
I'll tell you how I know that. See, this is the thing. How do I know that? I know how I know that because I'm an SI user. Stanchion. No, it spells CHION. An upright bar, post, or frame following a support or barrier. A frame that holds the head of a cow in place, especially to facilitate milking. And if you look more, it talks about the fact that it also refers to the thing that attaches the hoop to a backboard. Regardless, the point is, the reason I know what it means is because I took a poetry class from an excellent poet, it turns out he was, but also a good professor, a pretty good professor, named Timothy Steele. And he wrote a poem called, I forget what the poem's called, but it uses this word stanchion in it. That's where I encountered the word, and that's why I know what it means.
All the way back from college?
Well, yeah, I was from teaching credential program time. Even though I was in a teaching credential program, I took classes I wanted to take instead, like poetry writing.
Wow.
I took advantage of being in the teaching credential program to take undergraduate classes I wasn't supposed to take.
Yeah, I did that too.
So that was fun. That was a great class. This guy taught me how to write metered verse. I never knew how to do it before I took his class. And
how to do what?
How to write metered verse. And he's a brilliant poet. I mean, stunningly good. So let me see. Stan Shun, Timothy Steele. Let me see if I can find the poem. This is extroverted intuition, of course, in action here. The poem is called Practice, and it's by the author Timothy Steele, who's
really good.
I mean, I don't read enough poetry to say for sure how good he is compared to other contemporary poets, but he's my favorite contemporary poet that I know of, and is a remarkably good poet. Let me read this poem to you guys. Practice by Timothy Steele. The basketball you walk around the court produces a hard, stinging, clean report. You pause and crouch, and after fainting swoop around a ghost defender to the hoop, and rise and lay the ball in off the board. Solitude, plainly, is its own reward. The game that you've conceived engrosses you. The ball rolls off, you chase it down, renew, the dribble to the level of your waist, ensuring that a sneaker's tightly laced. You kneel, then up again, weave easily, through obstacles that you alone can see. And so I drop the hands I just now cupped to call you home. Why should I interrupt? Can I be sure that dinner's ready yet? A jump shot settles, snapping through the net. The backboard's stanchion keeps the ball in play, returning it to you on the ricochet.
Pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty damn good, and it has the word stanchion in it. So, that's extroverted intuition.
It's also a high level of verbal intelligence. The fact that you remember that.
Well, you gotta focus on something. That's the kind of shit I focus on, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, did you have to look it up?
When I read the poem first time, yeah, I had to look it up.
Did you look it up in a dictionary, like a paper dictionary?
I might have, because it was a long time ago, but I probably was looking stuff up on the internet by then. I don't remember.
Huh.
I mean, Delilah was probably like 2 years old, so it was like 16 years ago. Was I Googling shit yet? Probably. 2001, 2002 or something. So, anyway, introverted intuitors at this point have stopped watching this video. Because they're like, I thought this was supposed to be about the differences between intuitives. Well, it is about the differences between intuitives, but it's sweep style organized rather than plan style organized. So I will be periodically remembering that I'm supposed to be talking about a topic, and I'll bring it back to that topic, because that's good FE to constrain my any in that fashion and make sure that the topicality aspects of TI are attended to. And SI, I mean, organizationally. So, when I hang out with INTJs, one thing I notice is they're very no nonsense. Like, they don't get small talk at all. There's nothing, or either, like when I'm sitting there with Grace, some kids are chatty, some kids are shy but don't mind being chatted with and would like to be chatted with. Grace finds the concept of casual conversation alien. It's like, if we're not talking about why it is that compulsory education should count as a form of national service for the purposes of this topic, then she didn't understand what we're supposed to be doing there, you know? Which I appreciate. Is we get shit tons of stuff done. It's like Grace empowers me to be vastly more effective, because otherwise she looks at me like, why are you wasting my time? So, yeah, that's nice. She's such a super genius.
Is she a new student?
No, I had her last year, but like a lot of, I had a much bigger group last year. It took me a while to realize how smart she was. She kind of got lost in the mix at the beginning. Now I'm working with her privately, like one-on-one at her house. That's means I'm going fucking laser fast, just because I can't go too fast for this girl. It's impressive. I've not encountered but one or two other kids the whole history of my coaching who are as smart as she is. Both of them were NTPs, the other ones. ENTP and an INTP, I would say. I can think of that were just as smart, but man, she is fucking laser fast. Just, I cannot go too fast for her. An 8th grader. Anyway, ENTJs, though, are a different order of beast entirely. They do get very good at debate. They can become extremely effective at it. I had a powerful debater, indeed, ENTJ debater named Courtney. She was a hugely powerful debater, but I would never have said about her that she's super, super smart. She didn't feel to me as smart as, say, Grace feels to me. Even though Courtney was a better debater than by this point in 8th grade than Grace is, but Grace has a higher ceiling. She has the highest ceiling. It's like the way that INTJs debate. Their one weakness is if you surprise them with something that they just haven't considered at all. But
yeah,
but
they
other
like to
than
sleep
that,
on.
yeah, they don't do well with shit they haven't prepped for. But they prep powerfully. Like this girl, I tell her once I told her something one time and she's written it down and she's totally self-determining regarding notes and shit like that. I never tell her what to do. I just tell her the shit that I'm thinking. I don't say write this down. Huh?
Does she filter?
Yeah, she filters and writes down the important shit and ignores the other stuff and asks me occasional questions that are always revelatory in their answers.
Really?
Occasionally. She's silent most of the time, just nodding, looking at me. And I go, so did you get all that? Yeah. Can you explain it back to me? Blah, 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 blah. It's impressive.
Really?
Yeah, it's really impressive. Because we're doing some crazy fucking arguments, too. Like, in this topic, we're arguing, the topic is, in the United States, national service ought to be compulsory. And so, the challenge of the topic is, the people are always going to say, teams are going to attack it by attacking the compulsion aspect of it. Why are we forcing people to do things? And that's bad. Now, national service is usually military service. Sometimes it'll be like AmeriCorps or something like that where you teach, right? So AmeriCorps is an example of a national service organization, which education thereby is established as a form of national service. Well, we're making the argument that compulsory education for students under the age of 18, or under the age of 16, I say 16, is a form of national service. So, who is making all that noise? No, I don't think it is this time. It's Blanky. Okay, well, I muted Blanky. So, we're arguing that basically in the status quo, making kids go to school affirms the resolution. That's pretty is what you call squirrely argumentation. But it's ground argumentation, and we establish in our framework with multiple cards that in fact it should be considered topical. So they're going to have to be prepared to attack that specific topicality argument very precisely, or we should be able to win it. There's generic theory arguments about you could run that says like this is too precise and we can't be expected to be prepped for it and stuff like that. But there are generic answers to those theory arguments as well. And the one I prefer to use that I never hear anybody use, I've never heard anybody use it, but I always tell my kids to use it if they encounter this theory argument. People run arguments that say, the way that you're arguing makes this round unfair. It doesn't give me a fair chance to win. And because you're trying to pull that shit, the judge should make that a reverse voter and vote for me on the grounds that you're behaving abusively. Okay? So this is a common theory argument that people make. And I tell my kids to respond to it by saying, I agree with what my opponent just said. The way I'm running this round gives him no fair chance to win. Thus, there is no fair way for you to vote for him, Judge, and you must, to be fair, vote for me. I don't know why he conceded this point. He gave me the round right there. There's no possible way you can vote for him anymore because he made the claim that there's no fair way for him to win.
Right.
You know, that's the response to that fucking theory argument. I hate that fairness abuse theory argument. It's fucking garbage.
You've got that before?
Oh, people run that shit all the time. People run it as a generic. They run it not even knowing what you're going to run. They'll, like, whatever it is you run, we're running, you're not fair. And some people will be like, whatever it is you're running, we're going to run, it's too vague. Well, but you didn't say this, 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 this. It's called nibs, you know, necessary but insufficient burdens. People run nibs on, and you just gotta go. You can take your fucking nibs and you can shove them up your ass, okay? Those are totally unwarranted, necessary but insufficient burdens, and there's no way to argue that successfully unless you want to say that all action is bad, all decision making is bad, all whatever is bad, because you can always come up with infinite things that you didn't establish.
How is... Are we still making the video?
Yes, we're live streaming. It's okay, it's a live stream. It's supposed to be a little bit, you know, haphazard in its topic. I can always change the title to Talking to Nick About Random Shit.
When did you realize this girl was so good?
I figured it out last year, maybe mid-year, but I didn't really take full advantage of it because I was busy fucking around, basically. Last year I was it was my worst year as a professional of any sort, really. Since I was a meth addict, anyway. So it was like my single worst year as a professional in like 14 or 15 years. And I just did a really half-assed job. Now, the school in general still performed well because it had some inertia from the beginning of the year when I did a good job. But by the end of the year, my attention was on dating and finding Kimberly. And then once I found her, my attention was on Kimberly. And so I kind of just said, I don't care about this anymore at the end of last year. Now, of course, I'm paying the consequences, which is to say I've got a much smaller squad. But I'm extremely fortunate in that I have two of the best debaters in the country on my squad. Grace, who's almost there, just needs some round mechanics stuff still to improve on. And Edmund, who's already there. INTP, INTJ.
How much time do you spend with Edmund?
Well, I spent 3 hours with Grace yesterday, and we put together our AF case, we put together most of the AF case, which is, it's a pretty good case, you know. I'm pretty happy with where we are on it. And, you know, the nice thing is it links in well with the current public forum topic too, because current public forum topic is about North Korea. And regarding the North Korea topic, it's about what's in the best interests of South Korea, which opens up, because of the way it's worded, opens up all these arguments about what it means to have something that's in a nation's best interest. So I have in the LD case here a bunch of stuff that's equivalently about what's in a nation's best interest, what it means to be a nation, because this is about national service. So lots of the framework arguments are useful in both topics. Here we go. So in this case here, I'm going to show it to the people on the internet as well. Share screen. We define these terms of the resolution, and then scroll down. Okay, so And the first framework card is ground delineation. Education is widely considered a legitimate form of national service and status quo. Then the second framework arguments are comprised of three analytics. Ground delineation 2. These analytics are analytics I wrote, which is to say there's no citation on it. That's why they're called an analytic, because they're made by the coach or the debater. Learning is a form of national service. There is no disagreement among those who make or study public policies regarding the legitimacy of education as an expression of national service. In the status quo, student teachers can enter voluntary national service through AmeriCorps and the CNCS, and there is broad agreement regarding the positive impact of such service upon the country and the citizenry. Thus, it must additionally be noted that learning is a critical form of national service as well. If to accomplish learning is to improve the nation, then the learner as well as the teacher is engaged in national service. Analytic B. Compulsory education is compulsory national service to which all citizens are subject. I affirm the status quo in which children under 16 are required to provide a period of national service called compulsory education. Currently, all children in the United States under 16 are compelled by law to attend school. They are not compensated for the service. Instead, it is understood to be part of their obligation as citizens and the fulfillment of their end of the social contract. Analytic C. To negate this resolution, then, my opponents must either negate the institution of compulsory education or defeat these ground arguments here made, which establish for the purposes of this round that compulsory education is, in fact, a form of national service. So that's our framework. And then here's another analytic that needs a card. Rights-based objections have no impact regarding compulsory education because individuals not yet having reached the age of consent are already subject to compulsion under the regency justifications of parental authority. So this is what you see where I'm going with this case here. And then the next card, Ryan 2008, tag, self-determination theory explains how a nation's health supervenes upon education. Regardless of social strata or cultural origins, examples of both children and adults who are apathetic, alienated, and irresponsible are abundant. Such non-optimal human functioning can be observed not only in our psychological clinics, but also among the millions who for hours a day sit passively before their televisions or wait listlessly for the weekend as they go about their jobs. The persistent, proactive, and positive tendencies of human nature are clearly not invariantly apparent. Analysis. And then the analysis is like another analytic. Compulsory education provides the necessary foundation for fully informed decision making. The autonomous realization of healthy community requires an informed and intellectually capable populace. Only the actualized make truly autonomous decisions that reflect the will of their authentic selves, and authentic volunteerism amongst consenting adults require adults capable of consenting. So it links into voluntary service as well. And it continues on. It's a strong case. We got that done yesterday. We got a bunch of cards made the week before. I've only been with her now 2 times. I had the first time was the previous Tuesday, and yesterday. I started late with her. So, the amount of work we've gotten in 2 sessions, we got an entire AF case built, and we got about 14 or 15 cards made last time, most of which are neg cards. On neg and LD, you don't really have a case exactly. You can, sort of, but you really just your energy is directed at negating what the AF presents. So, unlike public forum where the neg has a case and the AF has a case too.
I don't know what neg and AF is.
AF is the people agreeing with the resolution. Neg is the side disagreeing with the resolution. So you got to prep both sides.
Against is AF stands for affirming.
Yeah, AF stands for affirmative and neg stands for negation. In public forum, they're sometimes called pro and con, but I don't ever call them that. I don't like those terms. I don't know why.
You get to choose the neg, or do you do both?
Can you say that again? I had a loud truck driving by.
You get to choose if your team's the AF or the neg, or do you do both?
They have to do both. I mean, they don't necessarily do both in certain events. In LD, there's what you call side constraints. That means they have to. If there are 5 rounds in Lincoln Douglas, they must debate 3 rounds on AF and 2 on neg, or 2 rounds on AF and 3 on neg. In other words, they have to do back and they usually switch it every round. So it's like if you're AF this round, you're neg the next round. If you're So you have to do both. In
With a
LD,
different topic or with the same topic?
same topic, but you argue both sides. In public forum,
That's
it's a
cool.
coin flip. So in theory, you can argue the same side every single round if you win the coin flip and choose that side, or if you lose the coin flip and your opponent chooses the other side.
What about when you go nag? What about when you go AF and then your opponent is going? What if you? What about when you're nag and your opponent's AF, and then when you're AF and the opponent's nag and they try and use the same shit you, or
Well,
vice versa?
you won't be against the same debater again. So
Oh.
once you've faced an opponent, you won't face them again unless you hit them in out rounds. So unless you both advance all the way to like the playoffs, basically the playoff rounds, then you won't see them again. They won't make you debate the same people twice.
That makes sense. Oh shit, that's cool.
And the way the mechanics of it work is there's what's called power matching. So after the first round, half the teams are 1-0 and half the teams are 0-1. In the second round, 1-0 teams hit each other and 0-1 teams hit each other. Then in the third round, 2-0 teams hit each other, 1-1 teams hit each other, and 0-2 teams hit each other. So in other words, if you win, you have to keep going against tougher and tougher competition, even in the preliminary rounds. Now, let's say you finish the preliminary rounds with 4 wins and 1 loss. Well, that's almost always good enough to get you into the out rounds. 4-1 is usually the break point, right? Sometimes, if it's a big field, you'll have to be undefeated, but it's pretty rare. Usually, if you are in a big enough field that would be the case, then they'll double the size of the out rounds. So if you have a huge field of hundreds of entries, then they'll make a double octafinal round, which means they'll admit 32 teams into the playoffs. And in theory, if you had enough of a field, like you had 500 teams or something in there, then they could go quadruple octas, which is 64. But the thing is, every round takes a certain amount of time, and you've got a certain number of hours for the tournament. If you're a full weekend tournament, you got to get all this shit done on Saturday and Sunday. So you might have 5 preliminary rounds. 5 preliminary rounds of policy debate takes 10 actual hours of round time, plus the time it takes to get the ballot between round time, which depends. So it's
Wow.
it's an endeavor to put on a successful tournament and get the right results. Requires you a good amount of time for prelims, and then if you have a small field, then out rounds could be just like maybe octafinals. That's 8 teams, or quarterfinals is 4, semifinals is octas is 16, quarters is 8, semis is 4, and finals is 2. So how many out rounds you have depends on what number of playoff teams you make the playoffs into, So anyway, the point is, I don't know what the point was about that. I have no idea why I'm telling you that.
I was asking.
Oh.
Now, did you go and judge that one that you were supposed to do?
That's this weekend.
Are you gonna skip it?
No, I'm gonna do it. I because Edmund wants to hire me for 3 rounds on Saturday, which is actually perfect because 3 policy rounds gets me out of there by about 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Saturday evening, we're having Delilah's birthday party over here at my house, so I have to be back for that, obviously. But I'm going to do that on Saturday, and then Sunday I'm available for a full day of judging. The nice thing is I can always get hired as a judge for policy debate because there are very few qualified policy debate judges, and any tournament that has policy that wants to be taken seriously needs to populate the field of judges for policy debate with legitimate judges, people who actually understand policy debate and can do it. public forum explicitly says in the rules that it's supposed to be a forum debate that can be debated amongst an intelligent, informed adult, regardless of debate experience. In other words, that you should be able to debate it in front of lay judges, as we call them, people who have no debate experience. Um, Policy debate is not like that at all. It's not really a legitimate round unless you get a legitimate judge in there, and there are only certain people that can do it because it's very specialized knowledge set. If a person in a round says, you can't perm the counter plan because blah 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 blah, you've got to know what that means. And if you don't, you can't judge the event.
And also, so how much does it pay to get to judge a weekend?
I think it usually pays about $30 a round. So if I do 5 rounds, it's like $150 for the prelims. So it would probably be for the weekend. I'd get like maybe $250 or something if I judged all the rounds.
That's cool. That's not bad at all.
Yeah, I mean, I need the money right now, and the other thing about it is, you encounter debaters and you encounter parents watching. The thing is, after a round is over, you give RFDs, reasons for decision. So you explain to the debaters who you voted for and why you voted for it. In policy debate, you always disclose. In other words, when the round ends, the judge tells the teams who won and who lost and why. There's no waiting to find out later if you won or lost, like there's in public forum.
And if you would have been at autonomy debate school, you wouldn't have gotten this problem.
I don't say that, but what I do is I give, and I've heard this from many people, and it's definitely so, unusually good, clear, and correct RFDs. I'm an unusually good judge. So the thing is, debaters can tell when I give my RFD that I know exactly what the fuck I'm talking about. Parents can tell when I give my RFD that I'm giving their kids better analysis than the kids' coaches give them. And so just being out there and judging and signing my name, Eric Strauss, Autonomy Debate School, gets me clients. I just have to do the legwork to do it, you know? The thing is, I have nothing real to complain about in life because if I did the 5 basic SE things that I need to do, I would have clients, no problem. I have more clients and I'd make more money and all that kind of stuff. I am just so SE crippled that because it's so important that I do these basic things, I tend to really, really not want to do them.
Yeah.
ENTJ doesn't have that problem. Different kind of intuitive. Right on topic I go. You see how that works?
That was good. It's interesting seeing it dark there and light outside here, like really light outside.
It's sun's coming out pretty soon. It's 5:35 or something. We're gonna be out here in California pretty soon, Nick. Pretty soon. You're gonna get to have fun in the California sun.
I will be there in 1 day and 7 hours.
And that's pretty soon.
Yeah.
I wonder if anybody has put anything in the chat in the live stream. Let's see if they've asked any questions. Host Eric, what do you think about blah? And then I'll say, I think this. No, nobody chatted anything. Bum, bum, bum. 3 people are watching, though. You 3 watching people, you should chat something. Okay.
Do you remember William F. Buckley Jr.?
Yeah.
Do you remember the Gore Vidal and William F. Buckley Jr. debate during like the 19? Gosh. Might have been the Nixon election.
That would have been before my time. I wasn't aware of politics when I was like 1 year old.
Oh, right. Yeah. I thought it was like a big deal. I assumed you would have like studied it.
I mean, I am familiar with William F. Buckley Jr. He's somebody that
I like him.
that made it into plenty of debate evidence tubs back in the day. So, like when I was debating in high school, we probably had cards that quoted him. And
yeah, he's a cool guy.
He was considered like an arch conservative back then, but he's not compared to anything the way that things are now. He's not. He's very centrist seeming to me. Hi, Cholo. If you are a viewer of this live stream right now, you're probably wondering, Eric, tell us about the difference between different kinds of intuitives. Well, let's talk about that a little bit. So, Chloe and I are both the same kind of intuitives. We both have extroverted intuition in the dominant slot. So does Nick. But Chloe is a different variety of extroverted intuitor because instead of having TI in the second slot like me and Nick, she's got FI in the second slot. Now, sometimes ENFP and ENTP can conflict over this because, of course, ENTP has polar FI, so we have a very hard time understanding the validity of the extroverted intuitor's use of FI sometimes. But despite the fact that we use different tool functions, we both understand the process of ideation as one of just letting go of one's mouth, basically. You know, as soon as I stop holding my mouth closed, any just goes. You know, it just happens. And I think Chloe's the same way. Probably Nick feels similarly as well. If you're a dominant extroverted intuitor, you learn to control yourself. You don't learn to be brave and say things, right? That's not what you gotta learn. You gotta learn to control yourself. And it's hard. It's hard for me still. I'm still yammering away, blah, 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 blah. This forum makes it really easy for me, right? This format is tailor-made to allow me to just have diarrhea of the mouth. And
speaking of Taylor, have you talked to him?
No, but I gotta talk to him today. I've talked to.
You said that yesterday.
I know. I tried. I made some bit of effort. I told Kimberly to do it. That counts. That counts. It didn't work, but it counts.
I think also one of the biggest difficulties that an ENXP faces in life is learning to become grounded so that like you're doing practical things for yourself and you're growing as an individual rather than like wasting time on like ideas, because it's fun to get like caught up in ideas, but it's like you kind of need grounding. And
yeah, that's called SI seeking, Chloe. For sure.
Yeah.
You need to be grounded. And one way to get grounded is to get an SI DOM to ground us. For Cholo, that SI DOM would be an ISTJ. For me and Nick, that SI DOM is an ISFJ. Or actually two ISFJs because there are two of us. But the point is, it's the same type for ENTP. And of course, what Nick and I demonstrate is that it's important not to get just any old dual, but you want to get a dual who's particularly well matched to you. So my dual, Kimberly, is in a lot of ways very different from Nick's dual, Jewel. So, but they're both ISFJs, and so we both experience the wonders of duality. But if we were to switch the two people, it wouldn't work. You gotta have the right person, and that person, in my opinion, must be your dual. But that's not enough, in my opinion. He or she must be your dual and match slab-wise. It has to have the approval of the slabs.
Well, I have a question. Like, I mean, is it possible theoretically to just independently work on those traits and focus on those traits until eventually you fully develop those traits because you independently focused on them?
Good question, and the answer is no. You will never successfully provide yourself enough SI because your natural state of being is SI turned off.
Maybe at a certain age you can.
I don't believe it. What my SI was near the very worst it had ever been when I finally got with Kimberly. I was eating one meal a day. I was sleeping more haphazardly than I ever had before. I was living on soda and never brushing my teeth. I was showering once a week. I mean, I was going out when it's cold in a little t-shirt and shorts and going, oh, I wonder what's wrong. What's wrong with me? I don't feel
I've
right.
done that.
Oh, it's cold. That's what's wrong. Oh, I should have put a jacket on.
We're laughing because we relate because we've done the same thing. Like, I go out and it's like, oh.
Yeah. It's seeking SI.
Anna bounced too.
You're never going to become good at this thing you find super hard. And
maybe this is in room 1.
Look, here's the thing. There's this thing that you find super difficult and that you wish someone else would do it for you. You're never going to become so actualized.
Yeah, but no, like I've gone out in like 90-degree weather with like a hoodie on just because I've been lazy.
What happened?
It says the connection to the connection to your face was lost. The connection to your face was lost. It was lost a long time ago. Lost like a plaster dust. Lost and blasted, flossed. If you like losing floss, you'll love Floss Glossers. Floss Glossers, the exciting new game by Milton Bradley. The other night, I was playing Floss Glossers with Dan. It was the best game I've ever played. I'm totally not joking with you. I'm totally serious. Well, let's see if this is still broadcasting. It is, so I don't know what's going on with appear.in. It's being unnecessarily lame for some reason. Don't say lame. Lame makes actual lame people feel bad. You mean cripples? Don't say cripples. That makes actual cripples feel bad. You mean lame people? Don't use lame. That makes the cripples feel bad. You mean cripples? Don't use cripples. That makes the lame people feel bad. Don't use cripples and don't use ripples and do use something else. Don't be afraid to go inside and get dressed like an elf. Hi friends, host Eric here. Welcome to Talking with Famous People. We had a little bit of a technical malfunction.
Technical difficulties.
Of all the difficulties I encounter in life, by far my favorite are the technical ones.
Oh yeah.
Sure. Technical difficulties are better than like most relational difficulties, to be honest, because at least you're dealing with something that you can rationally work through.
Yeah.
People, on the other hand, do not always make sense, and trying to understand their emotions is just like I don't know. It's like trying to read Chinese when you're Japanese. It's just weird.
With Korean grandparents. I will say that technical difficulties like having trouble with appear.in are vastly preferable to getting cancer. That's the kind of difficulty you don't want to have. Technical difficulties, I can live with technical difficulties as long as they're not too frustrating for too long.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not probably going to do a very good job of all the meticulous fixing it stuff if it does go wrong. So if we have some sort of technical problem, I'll probably throw up my hands and then say, Susie, 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 can you fix this? Because I find such things very meow-inducing.
Really? I like technical stuff.
I think it's an age thing. The reason I find it meow-inducing is because at 46, I'm not what you'd call a digital native. And so when I start running afoul of for example, setting up this live stream stuff, Susie did this for me. She took control of the computer using that Take Over Your Computer app and set it up. Because it asked me things like, put the stream identification code here. And I'm like, well, what the fuck is that? I don't know where that is. I don't know how to get that. I don't even want to do this. This is hard. I just do that before you even go any further. I do that before you go any further on the question. It's like, okay, you mean I have to have a piece of information that I don't have and don't know where to get? Fuck this.
That would just trigger my TE and would be like, okay, let's get shit done. Yeah.
Well, that's the advantage.
And my SI, so like the TE and SI come in and it's like, let's be super attentive to detail. Let's do this. Let's do this. Bam.
I envy you that. I wish I had a little bit more SE friendly function stack.
I wish that I had I wish I had more FE because at least you while it is your third function, at least you kind of do better in I don't know, social situations.
Chloe, it's true. You need to work on your FE. But I'll tell you something, you can and will, and you are right now working on your FE bit by bit. It's a matter of, like I said before, for all of us in EDON, it's a matter of learning to grab the reins on our own mouths and say, okay, I'm gonna pay attention to quantity of objects I'm dumping on the field. You know?
Yeah. That too. And also I wish I had TI. I envy you that too. Because if I had to be so impulsive, then I wouldn't just jump into shit as easily.
Well, Chloe, you're right to envy the TI because FI is totally lame.
It really is. But at the same time, I'm thinking of some positive things because that just triggered my Eddie. And it's like, oh yeah, well, challenge accepted. Let's find.
There are positives. That was a joke, okay, Chloe? That was a joke.
I know.
The thing is, there are valuable things about FI. Look, here's the reality. To the extent that I'm a seeker in life, I seek what comes very naturally to you. I seek genuine understanding of my own emotions. I seek genuine indulgence in the positive ones. It's like one thing that I have problem with is something kind of nice about polar FI is that you don't tend to hold grudges or feel bad about things for long. You tend to revert back to a naturally positive state of being. But one bad thing about TI is that for me with polar FI, I don't really get to experience the good emotions, the joy, the celebratory emotions, the excitement and stuff like that. I experience them in flashes. I don't get to sit there and feel good for long stretches of time. So on that level, what comes naturally to you is ultimately what I'm seeking even more than being loved with my FE aspirational. At this point, I seek loving others and feeling moistness.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
I think also like the music that you listen to can have an influence on changing your subconscious mind and changing the conscious mind so that you are more inclined to experience that, because there are ways of manipulating your brain to make that happen. I've learned how to do it.
Music is certainly very emotionally evocative.
Yeah.
It tends to make everybody of all types will agree that songs have a way of impacting them emotionally. What's that? What's that, Nick?
Just took 2 Adderall and 5 bands. Oh yeah.
Fucking, I'm so jealous of you. I have none right now. I want 2 Adderalls and a 5 bands, but instead I get to have a cigarette and bong rips. But it's fine. Here's the thing I was thinking about you and Jewel, Nick. I want to segue to this, which is I need to update my answer to Jewel. The answer is if Nick weren't on Adderall, he still wouldn't sleep at all.
Hey, that rhymed.
Once my sleep.
You should make that a song.
If Nick weren't on Adderall, he still wouldn't sleep at all. Listen, sons of bitches. That could be the chorus, right?
That would be so epic.
That's a good chorus.
See, again, this is like the ENFP syndrome. It's like, oh, new idea. Oh, let's do it. Even though I have like 500 other things that like I'm needing to do. It's like, let's just go for this.
That's why we're SE challenged, is because we understand that having ideas requires us to, at some point, decide to execute some of them. But we also understand that we have a hard time feeling that the choice to execute something is a choice to commit to a period of time to complete that thing. And it's that aspect of things that we really don't like, and why we have so much trouble with SE. It's like, I don't want to commit to the fact that I'm going to spend all the time necessary to follow through on this idea, but I'm excited by this idea right now, so it's the only thing I'm going to do if I'm going to do anything at all.
Yeah.
So even though I know I might not follow through on it, I might as well do it, get started. One of the things that helps is when you give yourself permission to start a bunch of projects and quit doing them partway into it. When you actually give yourself permission to do that, it kind of cures the problem a little bit.
Oh, okay. Well, also like procrastinating and setting deadlines, but then also taking breaks is also healthy, because like you don't really feel the pressure.
A lot of breaks.
Yeah.
We need a lot of breaks.
A lot of breaks.
We need a lot of breaks. We need a lot of time to consider how great it is that we're doing something. If you can't just do it, you got to also spend a fair amount of time patting yourself on the back for it. Taking celebratory bong rips and such. Ooh, I got a paragraph done. I got to pull some bong rips.
Dude, what if there was a job where, like, on your break, they just let you smoke weed?
There is that job. It's called debate coach.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I went out when I was working with Grace yesterday. I worked with her for 3 hours. I went out twice for break. The second break, I went out. I smoked a joint in my car, and then I went back inside and finished the class.
Yeah.
It's important. It's important to stay mentally sharp by smoking weed all the time.
Yep.
That's good advice for everyone out there. It's super good advice. You should all follow it.
Dude, one time I smoked a lot of weed, and then I got really drunk, and then I just started imagining all these okay. Have you ever seen the movie
enough. I'm stopping you right there. I don't want to hear your story about that time that you were so drunk. Okay. Now here's the thing, everybody. This is the kind of intuitive thing that happens between different kinds of intuitive. Chilo, as any FI person, is going to be more likely to reference experiences that made her feel things, whereas I'm more likely to reference things that are as detached from personal experience as possible, because In general, I'm using TI, which is a
Oh.
depersonalization function, and she's using FI, which is a personalization function.
And kind of some SI because it's like, remember back when.
Of course, SI, because you're an anytime she uses SI as her epistemology. That means her way of knowing things is subjective. She understands her life as events that happen to her, things she's learned, stuff like that. Which is why when Nick asked me, how do I know the word stanchion? I could tell him exactly how I learned that word. It was from a poem that I was introduced to by a class in counseling and stuff like that. That's my SI knowledge. I'm curious if an INFJ would remember that.
I remember things about the body and stuff really well, but I don't remember words really well. Not nearly as well as you do. Like stanchion? You remember how you read that once in a poem? Because I guarantee you have not had to use that word once since.
I used it today.
Right. But
you learn something new every day.
But using a word you learned 20 years ago or something that you haven't used.
Well, yeah, that one's a little bit weird too. I agree that that's an unusual story. I don't think most words I have that clear remembrance of where I learned them from. I think
that's impressive.
I think that's an unusual instance, though.
I was very curious to me as to how your mind's relationship with that word, and how you were able to pull it up.
It's definitely an SI relationship because in my mind's sort of vision, when I talked about the word, I pictured an image in my head from the poem. So it's like when I read the poem, I have kind of this image of a boy on a basketball court, and not like an arrow pointing to it, but sort of mentally the ball is going to go to the stanchion. You know, I had this sort of like picture in my head like that. That's how I remembered the meaning of that word. Was it drew that image, and I knew I associated the image with the poem. So it was like two associations combined.
Yeah. That's how I remember things about the body really well. It's all imagery.
That's how you remember that this is called your penis?
Whenever when you guys like imagine things, do you like see things? Do you like think about things with like words, or do you think about things with like images?
I usually do words. I said this. I asked Jewel the same thing. Have you been watching Jordan Peterson?
Who's Jordan Peterson?
Oh, you would love him. You would love him.
Okay, anyway. Well, it is a good question, and the answer is almost always words for me. But I have some what I would call not really images, but icons. Like the picture I'm talking about in my head of the boy in the basketball court. It's more like a shape of a boy, and the shape of a basketball court with no details on it really. So I have very poor visualization skills.
Me too.
If I try to draw a picture of something in my head, it would be impossible because the thing in my head won't stay put enough to draw a picture of at all.
Yeah. It's terrible.
So
what about you, Chloe?
And that also comes out as poor spatial intelligence. I'm really bad at figuring out which way to turn the furniture to fit through the doorway. It's the example I usually use, and I've got lots and lots of examples of that from my life where I stood there with a piece of furniture and I've gone, it just doesn't go. There's no way it can fit through this doorway. And then someone else will go, well, have you turned it like this? And I go, fuck you. That's fine. Thank you. I'll carry it inside now.
Because you really just like want to do it yourself, and it's like
because I sat there and tried it like every way I could think of, and I somehow missed the one way that it works. So
yeah,
it's like that shit frustrates the hell out of me. I used to be really upset about it because I'd be like, why can't I do this and everybody else can do this? But eventually I just accepted it's because I have really bad spatial intelligence. I'm really bad at understanding how two objects, not me, relate to each other in space.
You should play Tetris then. That way, like, it would develop that because it's like a way of like growing with it, and like you'll fuck up at first.
What would develop that?
Tetris.
It was a good idea, actually.
Tetris would develop that. Well,
yeah.
That's true. If you were playing physical world Tetris, now you have to have a game of Tetris where somehow the Tetris things are lowered very slowly on strings, and you have to jump up and move them over. If that were the case, it would train the thing I'm talking about for sure. That would be a great idea too. Real world Tetris is a great idea. We should somehow put that together at the big Talking with Famous People convention that I'm planning to have when someday I have a lot of money. I'm gonna have real world Tetris.
And when any of us can actually afford to go to it.
And the real world Tetris is gonna be like this, okay? So the shapes will be about yay big, okay? And there'll be a trampoline. And what you have to do is you have to jump on the trampoline and you go up and you move them into the different slots. Now, the things are shaped in such a way that when you put it in a slot, it slides up against the side. So it kind of inches down a little bit slowly to give you time to move them from slot to slot.
It has to be a big ass trampoline.
Yeah, it's like a 3-story game, okay? It's like a 3-story tall game. You have to have a big ass trampoline. A big ass trampoline, and you probably maybe even have to have spring shoes as well. So you can put springs on the bottom of your shoes to make it double trampoline. See?
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Oh, that
we
would be
should totally
cool.
do that. I want to do that. I want to put. How much do you think it would cost to put that together?
Oh, probably $1,000.
Look, the Tetris things can be made out of styrofoam, and you at the slots. If the slots are just the right size, then they'll sort of slowly slide down there. Especially if you oil them with coconut oil. So I'm thinking
everything works with coconut
Tetris
oil.
With coconut oil oiled slots that they can slide down slowly. Now you got to have it be very precise in the shape, and I mean the size, or else it will be either too big and it won't slide down, or be too small and slide down too fast, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we got a plan now. We got a plan. All we need is the SE to do it.
Or the TE to do it too, because the TE just is like, okay, let's
plan.
Nah, the thing is that now we have to put it into fruition, and we have to do it.
Right, we have to find a location that's inside that has a giant trampoline and 3 stories of space.
Yep. Challenge accepted.
It's fine. That's just I know one of those places local.
Sure. They're all over the place.
Yeah.
Or we could go to a rock quarry where there's a big hole in the ground. And we could use Tetris-shaped rocks that we find. And throw them at each other.
Or we could be one of the first people to be a part of colonizing Mars. I believe Mars is smaller than Earth, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the trampoline will work much better there. We won't need as sophisticated of a setup. And since it'll be low vacancy, or high vacancy rather, we'll have a lot of area to run around with, with using our, there'll be a lot of places basically.
Okay, well now I'm starting to think if we're going to do it on Mars, let's make a combination Tetris laser tag game.
Oh, that would be cool. Or what if we had Tetris drones on Mars? Oh, that would be cool.
We could
drones,
or maybe
it's true. You could have a drone that you control to move the Tetris things from one channel to another, and one slot to another. How many columns are there in a Tetris game?
I think probably 10. Maybe more. I don't know.
It depends on how you lay it all out. I think it's more of a fit width.
But okay, look. Imagine one of the straight line bar things in Tetris. How many of those line up along the bottom before it's full?
I have to go and look at it.
But Chloe, you never said are you pictures or words?
Oh, I use okay, have you guys ever watched the show Scrubs?
Yeah, I've seen it. It's
Yeah.
awful.
Okay, you know how JD like imagines everything?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I do. I just like imagine all these things, and like I imagine things in like images. And honestly, like I think out of all the fictitious characters out there, I relate most to JD, to be honest, because it's like I'm exactly like him.
Huh, that's interesting. I find most women say pictures that I
Really?
talk to. I've asked that question to several people. And all women have said pictures, all men have said words.
It's interesting. I don't know how Kimberly's brain works. I do get the sense that she remembers past events differently than I do, though. Like, that when she's remembering a past event, there's some duration to it, the memory, that doesn't exist for me. That for me, it's like a tag, a reference point, and there's almost no re-experiencing of the memory. It's simply an idea. It's been rendered into an objective notion, and it links in whatever ways it does to my other objective notions, but there's no experiential remembering. And I get the sense that for Kimberly, there is experiential remembering.
For me, it's just narrative. It's narrative, and then when I remember something, I remember my narrative of what I was doing during the memory.
I mean, that's what makes something relevant enough to become a memory at all for me is the extent to which it links into my larger narrative about either my self-development, about my history, about my insecurities or my strengths or my whatever. If it doesn't link to if it doesn't link to those narratives, then it doesn't exist pretty much for me.
Right.
It's a very egocentric model of the universe, but I think describing it as such is just being more honest about it than most SI users who are equally egocentric in their understanding of reality. NI users are much less egocentric, I think.
Oh, what do you think would happen if, like, you got an INFJ and an ISTJ in a chat together?
INFJ and ISTJ? Well,
yeah.
I think INFJ would feel completely in control of the situation. They'd feel as though they understood that this other person had poor FE, and yet they also understood that the person was very susceptible to normal FE things. And that's the problem that ISTJs have. They are susceptible to good FE like anybody is. So the reason people like INFJs is because INFJs do things like ask the person about what their interests are and ask them to display their own competence, basically. It's an INFJ trick that's really effective on anyone, including ISTJs. Now, concurrently, the ISTJ is going to feel as though, there might be a supervisor relationship, is it? No, it's not. It's a benefactor relationship, I think. I'm not sure, actually. But regardless, ISTJ probably won't notice that INFJ is running the show. And INFJ probably won't feel as though they're getting a lot of juice out of ISTJ because ISTJ is not going to be paying them an FE. So it's going to be kind of a tepid relationship, I suspect. I've seen a similar relationship with Kimberly and our neighbor Chris. Chris is an ISTJ, Kimberly's an ISFJ, not an INFJ. And the difference is, I think Kim used to be regularly exacerbated by Chris's poor FE until I came around and explained what was going on. And then now she's much more understanding of it and much more views it as a point of interest and analysis and less as something that she's reacting to in a sort of tangible blood and skin and guts way that she was before.
Yeah. Well, I recently tested this thing because, like, I have, like, I think this guy's an INFJ, but, like, one of my friends is an INFJ, and this other one was an ISTJ or INTJ. He's, like, IXTJ, pretty much. So he's, like, completely polar FE. Like, he has no FE at all. And so I got them together, and pretty much, IXTJ dude was like really blunt, really honest, didn't give a fuck. And in addition to that, like the INFJ was like trying to explain something deep and meaningful. And
well, yeah. I mean, there is going to be a certain amount of conflict regarding subject of interest between INFJ and ISTJ. ISTJ tends to be interested in fairly concrete versions of NE. So remember, ISTJ is extroverted intuition seeking. They do like metaphysical action. They like ideation. And to the extent that INFJ is very good at ideation for an NI user, in that regard, ISTJ should be able to take some satisfaction in the ideation of an INFJ. But the reality is, depending on what it's about, it may not be topically interesting to the ISTJ, which is why ISFJ is a much better match for intuitives. ISFJ and ESFJ are better matches for intuitives than are ISTJ or ESTJ, because ESTJ and ISTJ are much more sensors and in their topics, in their stuff that they're interested in. Nick, I was going to ask you though, what types of people do you think Jewel does not get along with? The stupid kind.
There's only a couple of people that I've heard, like, probably. I would say ESTJ, but she's liked one of those before a lot.
Well, the reason I ask is because Kimberly went, Kimberly rushed to, after putting up, not rushed to, eventually had enough and came into my defense with Modestus, whom she determined was needing a comeuppance of some sort, or she was really not happy with him. And I think that it has to do with the polar FE in the sense that he wasn't pulling off his FE attacks at all effectively. They were clumsily rendered, and it sort of offended her general sense of artistry with FE. Can you think of an equivalent sort of situation with Jewel, or is that specific to Kimberly?
No, I can think of a specific equivalence. She really didn't like not smart for a minute.
Really?
Yeah. He and I got into it one time about him just talking about how much he doesn't like me and stuff.
He doesn't like you?
I mean, I don't know. He didn't just a week or two ago.
Why?
He said I just always annoyed him from the beginning, from me first being here. I think the Janelle, like the fact that I had something with Janelle or something. Anyway, she really didn't like him after that. Like, really
Isn't that
didn't
sweet? Doesn't that warm your heart?
Yeah, she's like, I mean, and it was funny, like, that you were talking about Modestus, and now, you forgive him or whatever. I said the same thing to her about Mark. Like, I like talking to Mark. I really I like Mark. I love him to death. I don't care if he doesn't like me. Fuck it. She was like, but I don't get that.
Well, it's because the thing is, they don't have inherently a lot of faith that we can actually change things. They don't have much faith in our own agency.
They don't have faith in our own agency, do they?
No, and they don't have faith in their own agency either. They just don't have faith in agency. It's what comes from polar TE, I think. They don't understand how you get shit accomplished that you want accomplished, so they think it can't be done.
Huh. Yeah, it's interesting to I don't think I've fully understood, but that polar TE thing, that's tricky.
It's great. Because, for one thing, we can get away with some crazy fucking stupid shit that we say. That a good TE user would say, hold on a second, Eric. I think you need to pull back and start thinking about how you're going to plan this shit out a lot more clearly than that. But one of the great things is, like, Kimberly doesn't understand.
The contrary, though, is that if you have a good plan, they won't recognize it.
Well, that's true, because that's our job in the relationship. We need to stop expecting them to validate our work. They can't validate it. We got to figure that shit out. So it's like, Kim doesn't get that you get clients one at a time. She wants to find some course of action where all of a sudden my school has a bunch of new clients. But it just doesn't work like that. You get clients one at a time, and I didn't understand that before either. I didn't really get the fact that if I want to have a bunch of clients, I need to call each of my existing people individually and talk to them and try to sell them on the program and blah, 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 blah. I did fuck up some last year, but I still have a fair amount of credibility and, yada, yada, yada.
My meeting is still a really good way to get a lot of clients wanted.
What's that?
My meeting plan.
Your meeting plan?
Coach Eric get together. Talking about game plan for the year, what we're going to do, inspire a little bit, ask for referrals.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a good way to do it. But the thing is, you got to get enough people to that meeting. My point is, those kind of ideas are good, but really what I ought to be doing right now is just call that one person.
And then you have enough rapport, you've got an idea of how many people would actually come, where people stand, and then you would be able to have a meeting.
Right. I mean, you have a meeting with people. People are going to come to your meeting most likely if they've already bought into the program. It's hard to get prospective customers to come to a meeting like that, but it's possible. Regardless, the way that this is going to end up playing out is I'll pick up clients here and there as I judge and as we win. We're very likely to win the first tournament in public forum and maybe LD as well. We'll see about LD. It's going to be a little harder, but we're super well positioned. Parents see when they're at the award ceremony and their school that has a whole shit ton of entries gets like 4th place and 2nd place, and autonomy debate gets 1st place with their couple of entries, and then they see autonomy debate get 1st place in LD too. If we could do that, all of a sudden everyone's like, why am I with this other school? Why is not my coach doing this? The other great thing is if I'm judging during that tournament, which I will be, parents often sit in on middle school rounds, more so than they do on high school rounds. And so those parents then see my RFDs and they can tell that I'm doing a better job than their kid's current coach. That's how I end up picking up kids during the course of the year. That's just a process that we have to let unfold. ISRSAs and ENTPs are both really bad about letting shit unfold at its own pace.
Oh, yeah. We're both very impatient.
Well, they don't get the fact that shit has to unfold. They don't get the order of operations stuff. They're not necessarily impatient, but they just don't understand that the TE thing. the TE of things requires time to pass and shit to happen.
How is Kimberly with math?
So she says she's bad at it. That she doesn't like it and she's bad at it. I don't know. I've never really seen her. We haven't had a lot of math requiring situations.
Like if she had to give a 20% tip, how easy would that be to do?
Well, she has her own heuristic on that, which is her own little SI thing that she's learned, which is double the tax. And she uses that technique on every bill. She says, what's the tax? And then she doubles it.
Huh.
I don't do that, even though it's a smart enough way to do it. I figure out what 10% is, and
then double it,
and then double that, and then maybe subtract a little bit if I want it less to give a little less than 20%, depending, or sometimes I just give 20%.
Yeah, I mean that's what I do.
I mean, it's like.
Although sometimes I give 25%, but I'm able to figure out any percentage pretty quickly.
Yeah, me too. If it's a small bill, like let's say just me eating breakfast and it's like $12 or something, then I'm more likely to give, like $3 or $4 tip, which is more than 20%. Then if it's a bigger bill,
like 32%.
Yeah, if I have a larger bill, I'm more likely to go a little below 20% because then the tip starts to get pricey.
I'm bad with tips. Like I tip a lot.
Yeah.
But I used to have a lot of money, so I don't really do that anymore.
Right, yeah, exactly. Me too. Same exact thing. Me is I used to tip a lot, and I don't have a lot of money. I tip more.
I thought I was rich like last year.
I knew I wasn't, but
I thought I made it.
I was living like I was.
I made 40 grand from January to March.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. You were rich.
Yeah, I was killing it, man.
I gotta poop.
I do too.
Okay, now's a good time to end this live stream. We're gonna end it with a couple of poops. I'm still gonna be here in the room, but I'm gonna end the live stream now. So, thanks for watching Talking with Fans, people. This live stream wasn't very topically consistent, it's true, but hopefully it was enjoyable to watch anyway.
It was enjoyable to me, sir.
I enjoy engaging with Nick, and I also enjoy watching our conversations. So maybe you do too. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to eat plenty of cheese.